look at really successful people and just feel like they're playing a totally different game? It's so easy to think, oh, it's the money. But what if I told you the real leg up isn't the cash? What if it's a set of unwritten rules, a secret playbook for wealth that gets passed down, quietly from one generation to the next?
So let's ask it straight up. What is the real advantage? If you had to boil it all down, what's the one thing these families give their kids that just sets them up for life? I mean, our first thought is always trust funds, right? And, endless resources. But that's really just scratching the surface.
Because that's missing the point. The real inheritance, the thing that's actually priceless, is a specific set of rules and mindsets about how money, opportunity, and success actually work. It's like getting access to a playbook that I promise you will never ever be taught in school.
Okay, so let's crack this thing open. We're going to start by looking at the real wealth gap. Then we'll dive into what might be the most important part, rewiring your money mindset. After that, we'll get into the nuts and bolts of building your wealth engine. Then we'll cover the 80-20 of success. And finally, we'll talk about the ultimate inheritance.
So first up, the real wealth gap. And the core idea here is that it's a knowledge gap, not a cash gap. The playbook completely reframes this. It says the gap has almost nothing to do with the dollars in a bank account. It has everything to do with the conversations happening around the dinner table. The ones that normalize things like investing, business, and creating wealth from the time a kid can barely see over the tabletop.
And this is just a brilliant way to think about it. Wealthy families treat financial literacy like a second language. They get that the earlier their kids start learning to speak money, the more fluent and just comfortable they'll be with it. So while a lot of us are taught to see money as a huge source of stress, these kids are taught to see it as a tool, something you use to create opportunities. Okay, and that brings us to section 2, which is arguably the most critical part of this whole playbook, rewiring your money mindset. It's all about shifting from scarcity to opportunity. This is about changing the fundamental programming that runs in the back of your head. And look at this. This slide just lays it out perfectly. The scarcity mindset, it's all about playing defense, cutting back, pinching pennies, stressing out over a $5 coffee. But see, there's a hard ceiling on how much you can save, right? The abundance mindset, though, that's pure offense. It doesn't ask, how can I save $5? It asks, how can I make an extra $500 this week? The potential there, it's literally limitless. And this quote just gets right to the heart of it. This second you can remove all the moral judgment we tend to attach to money, you can finally start to think about it strategically. It's not evil. It's not the root of all your problems. It's a hammer. The value comes from how you decide to use it.
Here is another massive mental shift, your time horizon. Most of us get this completely backwards. We wildly overestimate what we can get done in a year, but we massively underestimate what we can achieve in 10. This playbook teaches the complete opposite. Think in decades. That kind of thinking fosters the patience you need to plant seeds, in skills, in relationships, in investments that won't pay off for years, but will eventually grow into a forest of opportunity. All right, so you've got the mindset dialed in. How do you actually turn that into real-world results? Well, that's section 3, building your wealth engine. This is all about the mechanics of making money work for you.
The entire wealth engine is built on this one dead simple principle. It's a concept so basic, and yet it's so profoundly misunderstood. An asset puts money in your pocket. A liability takes money out of your pocket. That's it. The whole game, the entire thing is just to fill your life with assets and get rid of the liabilities.
And this table just lays it out perfectly in the real world. That fancy sports car? It's not an asset, it's a cash-draining liability. The secret is that the wealthy don't buy their luxuries with their salaries. No way. They first buy an asset, like a rental property, and then they use the income from that asset to pay for the liability, like the car. The assets pay for the liabilities.
And this leads to another playbook rule that feels completely backwards to most of us. Not all debt is bad. So, bad debt is when you borrow money for stuff that loses value. A car, a new phone, whatever. Good debt is when you borrow money to buy an asset that generates income. The classic example is a mortgage on a rental property. Why? Because the tenant's rent covers your loan payment. Just think about that for a second. Someone else is literally paying off your debt for you while you build equity. That is the power of good debt.
Okay, moving on to Section 4, the 80-20 of success. It's all about focusing on what truly matters. So you've got the mindset, you're building the engine, but where do you point all your energy? This is where the playbook introduces a super powerful rule for strategic focus.
It's the 80-20 rule, and honestly, this is a total game changer. The idea is simple. Roughly 80% of your results are going to come from just 20% of your efforts. Now, the secret isn't just knowing that. It's about being absolutely ruthless in identifying and focusing only on that critical 20%.
So what's actually in that high-value 20%? Well, according to the playbook, it's all about leverage. It is not about working harder, it's about applying force to the right spots. So, for example, it means focusing on solving bigger, more painful problems because your income is directly tied to the size of the problem you solve. It means deliberately developing rare and valuable skills, not just getting another generic certificate. And critically, it's understanding that a single conversation with the right person can be worth more than a year of hard work. That's the 20%. Everything else is just noise.
And that brings us to the final chapter of the playbook, Section 5, the ultimate inheritance. After all these lessons on mindset, on assets, on focus, what's the most important, the most lasting legacy that actually gets passed down? Well, it's probably not what you think. And the final lesson, maybe the most surprising one in the whole playbook, is about character. Wealthy parents teach their kids that money doesn't make you a better person. It just solves your money problems. Real, sustainable success is built on a foundation of humility and respect, because they get that treating people well isn't just, the nice thing to do. It is a long-term strategic advantage. And that really is the ultimate takeaway, isn't it? The entire playbook, all these mindsets and strategies, that is the real inheritance. The money can disappear in an instant, but this knowledge, it's permanent. It's the ability to create wealth from scratch, and that is something anyone can learn. So now that we've opened up the playbook, the only question that really matters is the one right here. Look, the goal isn't to master all of this overnight. That's impossible. The goal is to choose one principle, just one, and start applying it today. So, what's it going to be?